If you think only Tesla and BYD are changing the EV world, then maybe the story is about to change, because this time the discussion is not about a startup, but about the company that has built its name in the world of luxury and engineering for decades. And now the thing creating buzz is Mercedes and YASA Flux Motor technology. A few years ago, people believed that the future of electric cars was only about bigger batteries and longer range. But now, the game is slowly changing. Today, the question is not just how far a car can go. The question is also how light it can be, how much more power it can deliver, and how much performance it can create in a smaller space. And in the middle of all this, Mercedes has quietly taken a step that is now getting attention in the global market. This is not coming from Tesla, and not from BYD either. This move is coming from Mercedes. It is being said that YASA's Flux Motor technology brings an idea that could challenge the traditional way electric motors have worked for years. Less space, more power, better efficiency, and a different engineering approach. These are the reasons people are now asking. In the future, will the real EV race be not only about batteries, but about motor technology too? What exactly has Mercedes done that it has been preparing so quietly for such a long time? Is this just a new motor, or a move that could change the direction of EVs for many years ahead? And if it really is as big as people are saying, then how will Tesla, BYD, and the other companies respond to it? Before we move ahead in the video, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you can watch videos like this before everyone else. A few years ago, the world of electric cars looked pretty simple. People believed that the company with the bigger battery, the longer range, and the car that could travel the farthest on a single charge would be the one that stayed ahead. That's why over the last few years, almost the entire EV conversation kept revolving around batteries. Some companies were talking about 500 kilometers of range, others about 700 kilometers. Some were showing off fast charging, while others were trying to offer bigger batteries at lower prices. It started to feel like the entire EV battle had become nothing but a battery battle. And to be fair, there was a lot of truth in that. Tesla showed the world that electric cars were not just slow and small. They could also be fast, smart, and capable of covering long distances. On the other side, BYD strengthened its position through battery technology and large-scale manufacturing. Toyota continued to trust its hybrid strategy, and Hyundai kept moving quickly with new EV platforms and designs. Every company in one way or another was trying to prove that its battery was better and its range was longer. But in the middle of all this, one company may have been thinking differently, without making too much noise, without making huge claims every month. Mercedes was working on a part that most people hardly talked about, the motor. Because as important as the battery is, the system that actually delivers that power to the road is just as important. When people hear the name Mercedes, they usually think of luxury cars, premium design, comfortable interiors, and high performance. But very few people know that the technology creating so much discussion today, YASA did not begin with a giant auto company. It started as a small technology company. And that's what makes this story even more interesting. YASA began with a very different way of thinking. At that time, electric motors were not something new. Work on EVs had already been happening. But one major problem kept appearing again and again. If you wanted more power, the motor became bigger and heavier. And if you kept the motor small, performance became limited. For car companies, this was the biggest balancing act, because space inside a car is limited. You need to fit the battery, fit the motor, keep the weight low, and at the same time increase power. YASA tried to tackle this exact problem. Their question was simple. Could a motor stay small, but deliver big power? Could more performance come from less weight? And that question pushed them to work in a completely different direction. That's where the concept of the axial flux motor came in. The name sounds a little technical, but most electric cars today use motors built around a different design. YASA believed that if the power flow and magnetic layout inside the motor were designed differently, it might be possible to create a system that was more compact and more powerful. The biggest claim of this design was exactly that: higher power density in less space. In simple words, more performance could be achieved without making the motor much larger. And slowly, this started getting people's attention. In the beginning, YASA was not a big name at the global level, but inside the engineering world, people started talking about it. For many high-performance applications, this type of motor began to look very interesting. Now, the biggest question comes here. What did Mercedes see in it? Because a company like Mercedes does not invest in technology just because it becomes trendy. Their decisions are usually made by looking many years ahead. At that time, the EV market was changing very fast. Tesla kept moving forward. Chinese companies were scaling rapidly. Everyone was talking about batteries, charging, and software. Mercedes may have started realizing that if they wanted to stay ahead in the premium segment for the long term, battery alone would not be enough. They needed something that could make the driving experience feel different. That's where Mercedes decided to bring YASA into its ecosystem. From the outside, it looked like an acquisition, but from the inside, it was more than buying a company. It was like buying future technology. Mercedes was not just trying to build today's car, they wanted to prepare performance EVs for the next 10 to 15 years. The thinking behind this strategy is considered much bigger. If the motor becomes more compact, the car's weight can be reduced. If less space is needed, the entire design can change. If efficiency improves, more value can be extracted from the same battery. And if more power becomes available, it can create a completely different identity in the premium performance segment. And maybe that's exactly why the name YASA suddenly started becoming part of the conversation. Normal motor versus YASA Flux Motor. If you want to understand why there is so much discussion around YASA, then first you have to understand the real difference between the motor used in most electric cars today and the axial flux motor that YASA talks about. From the outside, both look like motors. Both run on electricity. Both deliver power to the wheels, but the way they work inside can be quite different. First, let's talk about the motor that is used in most EVs today, the radial flux motor. The name sounds technical, but let's make it simple. Imagine you have a cylinder-shaped structure. In the middle, one part is spinning, and the outer part helps rotate it using magnetic force. Here, the force works in the direction from inside to outside. That's why it's called radial. This design has been used for many years because it is reliable, easier to manufacture at scale, and companies understand it very well. Now on the other side comes the axial flux motor, which YASA is working on. Here, the thinking is a little different. In this design, the force does not work from inside to outside. It works from front to back. You can think of it like this. If a radial motor looks more like a thick drum, then an axial motor may look more like a large, thin disc or plate. If we take a simple example, the difference is something like this. Imagine you have two fans. One is a long and thick table fan, and the other is a wide but thin ceiling fan. Both can move air, but their design is different. In the same way, both motors do the same job, moving the car. But the way they do it can be different. Now, let's talk about power flow. The job of any electric motor is to convert battery electricity into rotating force. But how that force is created, that's where the design changes everything. In the radial design, magnetic force spreads outward, while in the axial design, it works in the front to back direction. Because of this, some engineers believe a different style of packaging and power delivery can be achieved. Now size becomes an important topic. This is the part that caught people's attention. Traditional motors can sometimes take more space. While the goal of the axial flux design is to become more compact, this does not mean a smaller motor will always produce more power in every situation. But the idea is to try to deliver more performance in less space. Why does this matter? Because in an EV, space is extremely valuable. The battery sits underneath. There is a cooling system, suspension, cabin space, and electronics. If the motor becomes a little more compact, that extra space can be used somewhere else, or the car itself can be made lighter. Now let's talk about weight, because that is another big reason behind the discussion. Every kilogram matters in a car. More weight means more energy consumption. If one component becomes lighter, it can affect the entire system. That's why there is excitement around this kind of technology, especially in the high-performance and luxury EV segment. Then comes efficiency. People often make one mistake here. Efficiency does not only mean getting more range, it also means how much energy the system wastes and how much actually reaches the road. If a motor works in a more effective way, the same battery can deliver a better overall experience. But this does not mean the older motor has suddenly become outdated. Radial flux motors are still used in most EVs around the world and have been extremely successful at scale. Axial flux has still not reached everywhere, and scaling it is not considered easy either. How does such a small motor generate so much power? How can a motor that looks so small deliver more power? Because normally we think bigger means more power. Bigger engine, bigger output. But in the electric world, the story works a little differently. Here, it's not just about size, design, and the way energy is used also matter a lot. And that's exactly why technologies like YASA are getting so much attention. First, let's understand the magnetic field in simple language. The whole game of an electric motor runs on magnetic force. The battery supplies electricity. Electricity creates a magnetic field, and that field generates the rotating force inside the motor. That rotation finally reaches the wheels. In simple words, the real work that pushes the car forward happens through this magnetic action happening inside. Now, this is where design starts making the difference. If a motor is built in a way that allows the magnetic force to work more effectively, then strong performance can be achieved even in less space. And this is exactly where designs like axial flux come into the discussion. The goal is not to create power by magic, but to use the available energy in a different and smarter way. Now, let's talk about torque. Torque means the initial push. When you press the accelerator and feel the car move forward instantly, that feeling is torque. EVs are already known for instant torque. But if the motor design allows power to be delivered faster and more effectively, the car can feel more responsive. That's why motor design becomes extremely important in performance cars. Now the question comes, if all of this was so promising, why didn't Mercedes make noise about it earlier? Mercedes has always been the kind of company that often doesn't reveal too much until things are properly ready, because in the premium segment, being new is not enough. It also has to be reliable. Technology like this is not built in one day. Behind it are years of research and development. First comes the concept, then prototypes, then testing, then reliability work, and finally, preparation for production. From the outside, people feel like something suddenly got revealed, but inside, the work usually started many years earlier. Another reason could be premium positioning. Mercedes does not just sell EVs, it sells an experience. If they want their future performance cars to feel different, they need something that cannot be achieved only by increasing battery size. Along with this, future platform planning is also considered a major reason. The architecture of cars for many years ahead is decided long before customers ever see them. If a company is developing the next generation of EV platforms, things like motor technology have to be planned very early. And yes, the pressure of competition cannot be ignored either. Tesla keeps showing innovation. Chinese companies continue growing quickly. In this kind of environment, Mercedes did not just want to follow behind. They wanted to create their own path. That's why some people believe this reveal was not sudden at all. It was the result of many years of preparation. But now the real question begins. Will this strategy help Mercedes move ahead in the next phase of the EV race? Or will the rest of the industry also start moving in the same direction soon? Which Mercedes car will be the first to receive this technology? Now, here comes the biggest question. If this Mercedes and YASA technology is so special, then which car could get it first? Because no new technology arrives in every car immediately. Especially when it comes to a company like Mercedes, they usually introduce new things first, in their premium and high-performance models. That's why a lot of attention is now moving toward future AMG EV models. When people hear the name AMG, they don't just think about luxury, they think about power, quick acceleration, and a different driving feel. And this is exactly where this kind of motor technology could matter the most. Because if a motor is designed to deliver more performance while taking up less space, then the benefits can become much more visible in performance-focused cars. But this is not only about speed. Mercedes is also slowly changing its luxury EV direction. Earlier, the idea of an EV was simple. Put in a battery and build the car. But now, premium brands are focusing more on driving experience, balance, weight distribution, and overall feel. Mercedes may be trying to show that future luxury will not only be about bigger screens and longer range, it will also be about different engineering underneath. Now let's understand the performance EV strategy. Tesla built its identity around software and acceleration. BYD focused on batteries and large-scale manufacturing. Mercedes may be trying to prove that premium performance engineering is still one of its biggest strengths. If a car feels lighter, delivers power faster, and offers better packaging, then the entire driving experience can change. But that does not mean every Mercedes will suddenly get this motor starting tomorrow. New technology usually rolls out step by step. First come limited models, then production feedback, and after that, the scale increases, because creating a concept is easier. Building millions of units is the difficult part, and that becomes the biggest journey. Moving from concept to production. Making something work inside a lab and putting it into the hands of thousands of real customers are two completely different things. Reliability, heat management, cost, supply chain, and manufacturing. All of these things have to move together. Challenges? Is everything really that easy? Now, at this point, a very important question comes up. If this motor technology is so impressive, if it can deliver more power in less space, if it can improve performance and efficiency, then why hasn't every company in the world already moved in this direction? After all, Tesla, BYD, Toyota, Hyundai, and many other major companies have also been building EVs for years. So why are they not all using this kind of motor? And this is where we start understanding that a technology looking good and producing it at a large scale are two completely different things. First comes production cost. Creating a new motor design is not as simple as giving it a new shape. It often requires new production tools, new testing systems, new assembly lines, and in many cases, an entirely new supply chain. If a company produces millions of cars, even a small increase in cost can create a huge impact. That's why companies adopt new technologies very carefully. Then comes the question of rare materials. High-performance electric motors often use magnetic materials and components that are not easily available everywhere. If supply becomes limited or prices rise, the entire production process can be affected. So having a good motor design is not enough. A stable supply is equally important. After that comes the challenge of heat management. Getting more power sounds exciting, but more power can also mean more heat. If heat is not managed properly, performance can drop or extra stress can be placed on the system. That's why cooling is not just a small part of the process. In many cases, it becomes a major part of the entire engineering approach. Then comes manufacturing complexity. The world has decades of experience building traditional motors, but starting production with a new design is never easy. Machines may need to change, training may need to change, and quality control can become much more difficult. Now comes the biggest challenge. Scale. A company can build 500 or even 5,000 units and show impressive technology. But producing millions of units is the real test. That is where it becomes clear whether a technology is truly the future or just a premium experiment. And then, repair cost becomes another question. New technology can often mean new parts, new service requirements, and different maintenance processes. If the system becomes too complex, ownership costs can increase for customers over the long term. And finally, reliability. Because a company like Mercedes does not only sell fast cars, it also sells trust. If a system cannot perform consistently for a long time, then no matter how advanced it looks, its real impact may remain limited. Why is this a wake-up call for Tesla and BYD? Whenever a major technological breakthrough happens in the world of electric vehicles, its impact never stays limited to just one company. It immediately creates pressure on the companies that are already leading the race. And with the confirmation of YASA Flux Motor technology, something very similar is happening. From the outside, this may look like just another technology upgrade for Mercedes, but internally, it can be seen as a wake-up signal for giants like Tesla and BYD. Let's understand why Tesla and BYD are both controlling the EV game in their own different ways. Tesla is known for performance, software, and drivetrain efficiency. On the other hand, BYD has built its strength through battery technology, cost control, and large-scale manufacturing. So on one side there is technological leadership, and on the other side, there is the advantage of price and scale. But YASA Flux Motor technology has the potential to shift the entire direction of this competition. Until now, the battle was mostly about who could deliver more range, who could charge faster, and who could build a more affordable EV. But with flux motor technology entering the conversation, the competition is slowly moving toward a new area where motor quality becomes more important. If a company can deliver more power, better efficiency, and potentially make better use of battery energy with a lighter motor setup, people may start paying attention to more than just range and price. The challenge for Tesla becomes bigger because one of Tesla's strongest advantages has always been its motor and drivetrain performance. If a company like Mercedes starts delivering a driving experience that feels equally strong, or in some areas even more refined, through technologies like flux motors, then Tesla's image as the technology leader could face more competition. This becomes especially important in the premium segment, where customers do not only care about specifications, they care about the complete driving experience. The pressure on BYD could look a little different. BYD's biggest strength has always been in-house battery production, manufacturing scale, and cost efficiency. But if technologies like flux motors improve how effectively battery energy is used and help extract more value from the same battery size, then the economics around battery size and cost may start changing. That means winning simply by installing bigger batteries may not stay as effective in the future. Another major shift is that the competition is moving away from how many EVs are being sold toward how well EVs are being built. If Mercedes starts delivering a smoother, quieter, and more premium driving experience with flux motor technology, premium customers may begin looking beyond Tesla and BYD. And in the EV market, customer trust remains one of the biggest factors. One more thing is important to understand. Both Tesla and BYD are companies that move quickly when they see new opportunities. If a technology like flux motors proves successful, pressure will naturally increase on them to either improve their own motor technologies further or move in a completely new direction. That means the next phase of competition may not just be about market share anymore. It may become a race for the speed of innovation, price, and impact on the average customer. Dream or reality? Whenever a new and advanced technology arrives, the first question people ask is always the same. Will it reach everyday customers, or will it remain only a dream for expensive cars? With YASA Flux Motor technology, people are asking the exact same thing. From the outside, it may seem like this kind of high-tech motor will stay limited to premium and luxury vehicles. But if we look at history, the picture starts looking a little different. Almost every major automotive technology first appeared in expensive cars. Airbags, ABS, automatic transmissions, and even touchscreens started in luxury vehicles before becoming common. But as production increased, companies understood the technology better, and costs came down. Those same features eventually reached everyday cars too. Many people expect flux motor technology could follow a similar path. Right now, this technology will most likely remain limited to premium EVs. The reason is simple. It is not easy to manufacture, and production requires a high level of precision and attention to detail. But as more major brands begin adopting it, production volumes could grow and costs may gradually come down. Over time, this technology could eventually move into mid-range EVs as well. For everyday customers, that could mean getting the kind of performance and efficiency that today is mostly found only in expensive cars. Now the question becomes, will regular EV buyers actually be willing to pay more for it? The answer depends a lot on experience. If customers can clearly see that their car offers better range, the battery holds performance more effectively over time, and the driving experience feels smoother, then many people may consider paying a little extra, especially if it helps reduce costs in the long run. Now, let's look toward the future, the next 5 to 10 years. If technologies like flux motors become more common, the EV industry could change in a big way. One of the first changes may happen in motor size and weight. Cars could become lighter, designs could become more flexible, and range could improve without increasing battery size. And if you enjoy deep and informative stories about EV technology and the future of cars, make sure to subscribe to the channel right now.